So hi, I'm Gina Stevens. I'm publisher and owner of Raleigh Magazine, which is celebrating 6 years this month. And 5 years ago, I like to say people don't celebrate 6 unless you're in kindergarten or first grade. But after last year, celebrating 6 is a big deal. And being able to stay open. So thank you for coming out to listen.
Yeah, I'm Melissa. I'm the editor-in-chief of Raleigh Magazine. And to answer your earlier question, for me, the best thing that came out of COVID was this job. And that's really how it happened. I'd been working from home for years, and I was an editor for other city magazines in Atlanta, mostly in other cities. And because of COVID, they downsized, and I was freelancing, and here we are. And the timing was perfect. So started in January, and Gina and I have really been working hard to re-envision like the brand that the vision we share, and that's where Liz comes in and just kind of really perfectly completed that puzzle. So we're excited to be here.
The good thing or bad thing about COVID, and it sounds like it's a good thing, it sounds like a bad thing, is we've had an entire flip of our entire staff, except for Lauren. And everybody had been with me from the start. So, you know, in one way you hate to see people leave, but in another way, change is a good thing. And so I'm very fortunate to have probably the best team I'll ever have to take us to the next level. I was invited to speak to this group. I think your business didn't even, I don't think, how long has Tabletop been around?
So, since 2015?
Yeah, so we started about the same time. So a year into it, I was invited to speak to this group at a luncheon and walk through the magazine and tell them about it. And I was trying to think back to that. It was such a new concept. Full circle. 6 years later. And at that time, really my two messages were, what's my lane? There are other publications in the market. And as all of you know, I built Midtown, Cary Living, and Pinehurst, and then sold those. And so really wanted to make sure that I knew what my lane was. And there were two differentiators with Raleigh Magazine. It's circulation and it's content. And I really believed if we had those two things right, the rest would come. The advertising would come, the subscribers would come, but we had to get that right.
And take your home for saying, tell everybody what your current circulation looks like. I think that's a huge milestone for
it is.
local pub.
We publish 36,000 magazines a month. We do 2,000 in direct mail to newcomers. We put 14,000 on the street, and we mail 22,000 to subscribers and readers. And that's it. It is. And we're working on that and growing that, and it's not easy to get people to pay for content. But I will say, talking about COVID, there's nothing, you don't ever want to say out loud that COVID was a good thing, because it's not. It was horrible. But what it made us do was really look at our entire business plan and look at it differently. We were 1 week away from going to the printer with our April issue when Governor Cooper shut the restaurants down. Magazine was done. Cover was shot, everything. We basically threw as much of it out as we could, wrote a story about how to make your takeout food taste good at home, shot an incredible new cover called five of our favorite restaurant people, and said, bring your best takeout to Felicia's house. We're shooting a new cover at 2 o'clock. Tried to take out all the events we knew couldn't happen, and pivoted in a way that I had no idea whether it would work. We also didn't know if people would pick up the magazines off newsstands, whether they would touch paper, whether they would open a box. Think about it, way back last March and April. So we immediately contacted our favorite restaurants all over town, North Raleigh, West Raleigh, downtown, Midtown, and said, if we provide you with sealed boxes of magazines, will you put them in your takeout orders? We also contacted some of the high-rise, nicest apartments and did the same thing, delivered boxes. What that did was we grew our subscriptions by about 20%. Which and that for us is the end game. The number of magazines we put on the street, we always want to have some on the street, But the game is to get subscribers who are willing to pay for it. We reduced the cost of our subscriptions to $10 for 10 issues, and I don't foresee changing that. It's not a revenue generator for us. It is when I sit in front of people like you who help and influence buying decisions. We want to be able to say we know how many eyes we have. Our competitors don't really know that, and we know that's important. That was a significant change. The other significant change we made was one of the things we knew we wanted to be when we started the magazine was digital was important. Our website has never been a flip book. It's always been new content, brand new. But we were doing the pathetic one newsletter a month. Yes, I will own it. Embarrassing to say, and we now do twice weekly. And with 2 brand new stories created, we now pay, and we have writers on being paid to help us generate that content. And that is growing regularly, and we know there's a market for that. We have about a 40% open rate, which is pretty good. Yeah, and that came out of people wanting to know what the governor had said. But now it's translated into they want to know what to do this weekend, and they want to know about the new degree at Peace and different things we write about. So we've been able. I think we learned how to survive and thrive in this, and how to pivot, and we grew our audience. I like to say that there's only about 20% overlap between our online RaleighMagazine.com and our subscribers. So that's another 70,000 people that are exposed to the website that aren't necessarily reading the magazine. We also, I'm proud to say, have the largest social media presence of any publication in Raleigh, including the News and Observer.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're almost at 25,000. We're like this close.
I will go on record saying we're coming for you, Indy. We're coming for you.
It's close to them, yeah.
Yeah. And for us, that's a totally different segment of our audience. We did an event recently. The people that showed up hadn't read the magazine, hadn't visited the website. They are total social media followers. So for us, there are 3 different audiences. We don't sell our social media, and we never will. We will partner with you. We give away. We do all kinds of interesting things, but we are never going to put a dollar sign on that. And that leads me to the part about our editorial. I said it 5 years ago, and I believe it more today than ever. We're not a pay-to-play. We hope that people will advertise with us, but we tell good stories, whether you advertise with us or not. And I believe that this market is educated, and they know the difference. They know when it's pay-to-play, and they know when it's legit. And that's part of the reason. I wish Lauren were here tonight. In this time, we not only hired, I feel fortunate to have had Melissa. I always said, over the course of the magazine, we've hired she is the 4th editor, but every single person's brought something different to the table. Someone else was just about helping us get our baby walking. And then I had some big, InStyle magazines, past editor who helped us. And then Jane Porter, who all of you know, who I adore locally, has great news sense, good writer. But the nice thing, and she left to go back to the Indy, which completely understood. But Melissa brings that sort of big city experience with an abundance. She's a local girl. She went to NC State. She knows Raleigh. Yes, I'm telling you, there will be something pack-oriented in every issue. She finds a way to get it in. Yes, she does. So I feel really blessed, and she also absolutely understands that I believe the integrity of our content matters. So I think that's kind of, our story, how we got to where we are, and I'd like Melissa to talk a little bit about how to pitch.
So, picking up where Gina left off, that vision is really where we intersected. So both of us had a background in magazines that were strictly advertorial. I don't know if you guys all know this, but Midtown was her baby, and that is a sales machine. It's pretty much strictly advertorial, and I was the EIC of a magazine I launched in Atlanta in 2017 that was also advertorial. If you bought an ad, you got an editorial story to go with it. There was no true like original content. So where we intersected was we wanted to tell real stories. We wanted real editorial. We don't want any ad dollars attached to it. If you build it, they will come. The advertisement is separate. And it's been incredible how many people, even in the 8 to 9 months I've been here, how many times I've reached out for a story that people are like, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "I just want to tell your story."
Tell
I just want to quote.
Oh, okay.
Tell that
So
story.
can
She
I
has a
say
great-
who it was?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Tell that story.
Okay. So Gina got a tip from somebody about this place downtown called House Page, which is a fashion house that's been in like British Vogue. We'd never heard of it. Long story short, start pursuing the story. She won't return my emails. She won't return my calls. I finally get her on the phone, and she's possible. Basically, this 10-minute conversation is kind of like, on edge. And she's finally like, this has never done any good for us. Whatever it is you're looking for, like product or whatever else, like we're not interested. And I was like, oh, here's this silence, no.
We don't want anything.
Literally didn't know who you were. Raleigh doesn't know who you are, I can promise. And we just wanted to tell your story. And she kind of came on board. And then we never told that story, as you guys know. Gina went and met her.
So I have to interject.
Yeah.
So she does couture. I mean, she is in Southeast Raleigh. I found this out from JD, the bartender at Stir, who is, I'm telling you,
I didn't know if I could reveal your
I
source.
shouldn't probably reveal my source, but if he has a good story idea, he shares it. So she lives in Southeast Raleigh, has this little shack behind where she makes incredible clothing and costumes for movies. I'm like hooked. I'm telling the story. I'm like, she could have moved to New York. She could have moved to LA. She wanted to stay in Raleigh. She went to Enloe High School.
There you go.
So she thinks we want something. She thinks she needs to buy an ad. She thinks she needs to give us clothing. I drove to her house and rang the doorbell. And I said, I don't care whether you tell me your story or not. I need you to know I want nothing except to tell Raleigh that you did not take your business and move elsewhere. You're employing people in Southeast Raleigh. She was super flattered and super nice, and she's going to eventually tell the story with us. She's doing mostly movie work right now, and so she wanted to wait till she's back doing retail. But the point is, people think that we want something in return to tell their story.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry to interject.
Oh no, I'm glad that you did. But we've definitely run into that quite a bit, and it's been hard to get the message out that our angle, which is why Gina and I wanted to partner together, is just to tell good stories. The rest of it will just come on its own. And so on that too, we really want to tell unique stories. We don't want to be telling the same stories that other local magazines are telling. We realize that the audience for the NNO and TVJ and some of these things, WRL, are different than ours, and so there may be some crossover. So where we land there is we really want to tell a story with a unique angle. So Heights House is a great example. Everybody can probably feel like they've heard their fair share about Heights House. I don't know how much you guys would have recognized this, but Heights House was on every social media platform, every blog, every magazine, everything, the newspaper, the TV. We were the only media that didn't cover it. And we waited 3 months, and we insisted on having a unique angle, and then we broke the news about their bar. And so that is really important to us, and I think it's part of where we wanted to lead off on the relationship that we have with you guys, but then also just that PR has with editors in general, to know like what their mission is, what they really think is important. For us specifically, it's not only to tell, we love exclusives, obviously. If you can give us an exclusive, you pretty much guaranteed content if it's cool. But beyond that, we realize that's not always, gonna happen. We just found out about the Derby like a couple days ago. It's in TVJ today. But TVJ, you only can read 2 free stories a month, and a lot of people that aren't like in corporate jobs or in our jobs aren't reading that. So there's some crossover. As far as tips for how to get us, and I think it carries over to other publications, to want to tell your story, I think that pitching us the unique story is the first thing. But I think the second thing is knowing what what we would want to tell, knowing what the tone is, knowing what kinds of topics we're covering. So as a side note, all the things you guys shared that you loved during COVID are stories we would have told.
She leaned over and said, I just heard 3 stories.
I would still tell
literally.
the vintage story. I would tell the RV story. I would
And the
tell
babies,
this story.
yeah.
I would tell that you're having a baby. So it's so funny because you guys are pitching this to
Reminder,
clients.
you did tell
but-
one.
I did tell you.
She did a like sound bites section from different people in the
yeah.
industry, and she asked I think Lauren actually interviewed us with a bunch of questions. And the 2 of mine that made it in were getting weird food in my kitchen, and also that I miss happy hour.
Oh, our pandemic issue. Yeah.
Because let's be honest, I miss happy hour.
Yeah.
And we had happy hour at home, which is not the
It's not
same
the same.
as when someone else passes the drink across the bar to you because the barkeeps are gods.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's well made.
So it's funny because obviously it's your job to pitch us stories related to your clients, but I would think also just to build that rapport, like if you hear other stories in the community, whether it's about yourself, your friends, because we start our meetings with what's everybody talking about, and that's really what we want our magazines to be about. And the other thing is, so I think it's really important if there's a magazine you want to have a relationship with, like ours has a newsletter, it's twice a week. I would subscribe to it. I would at least skim it. Then in that newsletter is 2 original stories like she mentioned, but there's also, by the time we get through the month, every single print story we ran, or within reason, was also in that newsletter. So you've now seen all the content that we've been circulating. So now let's say, in 3 months you want to talk about Heights House, you're like, oh, they already did that. So I'm going to have to come at them with something new. The next thing is subject lines. So I don't even want to tell you how many emails we get, and it's hard to get an editor or a publisher to open your email. I mean, I'm obsessive and I open most and she makes fun of me, but I also
She
have a lot.
responds to every email, which if you know me, you know I don't.
I also just have a lot of anxiety about how many emails I have and I have to read them, and so it's nice to know which ones are from someone in LA that has nothing to do with me, for example. So I'd say, since you guys are local, that even though I do recognize your email addresses, saying for example, since you know us so well, the angle in buzz section or newsletter or this week, because the cool thing too is with the website and the newsletter, it's now, and with the print, you're having to give us depending on the timing, 2 to 8 weeks advance notice. So
But
we leave space. I said 2.
I will always say, and I've said this to Kristen, and I said it early on, I did some consulting work at our state who has a 90-day lead time. Oh my God, it's the world could blow up and they're still going to publish that magazine as is. I don't care who's listening, it's true. I worked there, I know.
It is true.
And I love them. It's a beautiful magazine, it's gorgeous, but it's I want, if something breaks on Thursday and I go to the printer on Friday, somebody's gonna be
Yes,
writing.
I know.
We're gonna get it in.
Where we're compromising on this, because editors want to have a slate, they want to have stories going. Obviously, you can't produce a magazine overnight.
Yeah.
Designers don't want to lay it out overnight. But where we're compromising on this is, let's slate it. We'll leave a couple spots open, and if a better story comes along, you've got those stories that you can push to web. You can push the next issue if they're not, going to be stale. So. I think though, having that in the subject line, what you want, especially if we basically go to the printer every month around the 20th. So that means, the likelihood you're gonna get something on the 19th, it better be the world's on fire. But but up until that,
clients ask.
We've done it.
I know. But otherwise,
Definitely gonna need a one-day
leading up to
extension
that,
around you.
it would be nice to have right now, if you're emailing me, hey, cool story for November issue, buzz section, that kind of thing, and then it helps you filter your inbox. Beyond that, I think the brevity of it, and also just the initial just 2 to 3 sentences if we want more, unless there's a press release to attach. And also if there's photos, unless for some reason you don't want us to have them up front, you'd be surprised how much we can just immediately turn something into a story without even having to go back to you, which does contradict the brevity part a little bit. But the photos, and then if there's a photo credit, labeling what they are, all of that is so helpful and would push your content to the top. Especially the visuals are very important. So there could be a story that we're on the fence about, but if the visuals are super compelling, that's going to make a difference for us too.
What kind of imagery is most effective for y'all? Tight shots, kind of.
We just want to be edgy and different and
are reflective of the story.
Yeah.
I mean, strong imagery. I mean, it's going to be different than
Well, and I say we've got openers. We do a different situation with our buzz opener, our eat and stuff and do. We have an opportunity to basically tell a story in 300 words, but it's more about the image. And we really want those not to be attached to a story that's in the section. We want them to be standalone, that the image blows you away. And so it's a drink, it's a dish, it's a chef, it's a new space, it's a bounce house, it's an adult bounce house. It's Shop Local sent out their email, which this is in the current issue, I think. But they profiled a builder who was doing basically kids playhouses that could later be converted to man space or woman space, and I just fell in love with it. They weren't even pitching us, I just happened to see it, but the imagery was so great. So I think, that's what we mean. If it's unique.
Yeah, so 2 points there that totally plays off this. One, knowing those pages, you might see a visual and be like, this would be super cool for your eat opener, and then that takes a lot of thought work out for us of what to do with it. So kind of pitching a story, not a thing. And then the second part is under promise, over deliver. So the bounce house was one of our favorite stories that was supposed to drop in September, and she couldn't produce the photos. So
But it's a business owner. It's not a PR person.
Right. It was different, and they brought it to us, and then but it works out. It'll still be in October, and we're excited to tell it. But to have to fill that space after you never want to write a story you can't run. So obviously things happen, and that's the other part too. I think at the end of the day, this is a symbiotic relationship. Like, you guys want to be able to trust us, we want to be able to trust you. I know that things happen and press releases change over time, but you have that production schedule. We work closely together. If you know something changed between when you told us and when we're going to print, please tell us. And once you burn somebody, it's hard to get that trust back. As an example, 2 weeks ago, I spent an hour rewriting a poorly written story about a comedy show that was going to be at Raleigh Improv, and we found out an hour before it was going live in the newsletter that it had been canceled 3 days before, and we only found out because Gina checked her junk. And it wasn't even from the PR person. It was from Raleigh Improv's regular, auto emails. So there's a lot of recent examples where we've been pitched and then we went to go do something and we got burned. And so I think just that trust is really important.
And along those lines, I love working with all of you. And we have other people in the market, and in this group we work with well. I think the thing for us that we really don't have any tolerance for, as no one would, is if we agree to do a story that is an exclusive and you're going to share something with us and we're going to break it. We've put it on our cover. We've hired a photographer. We have gone all out. You think we've gone to the printer and then you decide the night before to release it on Instagram? No, that happened.
Yeah.
Lucky for me, I didn't tell the truthful data when the magazine went to the printer, so I was able to pull it off the cover and lose my mind.
Pivot.
The PR person.
Pivot.
Yeah, I saw it laying in bed at midnight. That's what I need to be doing, is
But the
texting
thing
her.
is, if you don't want us to have it exclusive, it's totally fine. But just tell us that up front. And we just want to be able to trust the information that we're getting. There are 4 magazines in the market. There's plenty of places to take the story. It's just a matter of what audience you want. And so we're big on trust and loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much hits all the pegs. I don't know if you guys have any questions, but we do love working with all of you. And I was going to add one thing. We had 2 or 3 stories off the top of my head that are badass stories that we only told because we happen to know. So one was this milliner, which is going to be in the September issue, which comes out tomorrow, it's the 100th anniversary of The Great Gatsby, and she's a local milliner, and she's doing Wear the Gold Hat, which is a national exhibition. She sends us a press release. Again, this is not PR, this is the business owner, but it's still a good lesson. Gina just was intrigued
Because I just watched
and went down the wormhole to find out she was local. The peg was so buried. The fact she even read it is amazing. It was a really long email. So we told that story. The next one was, I got an email tonight about a documentary dropping on HBO Max on September 15th, and it said local documentary, artist, but it was from a New York PR person. So I was like, oh, did they just make a mistake? I took the time to Google her. She is from Raleigh. but it said Raleigh nowhere in there. It wasn't clear that that wasn't just a mass email. And then the third one, which is also in our September issue, is that Simple Mills is coming out, if you guys know that product, with a new line for fall, or a new product for fall. I got the press release from a New York agency, but I happen to know that girl started that brand here. And so we're telling the story, but only because we knew that. None of those are just three
They're
easy
not
examples.
pitching it with a local angle.
Yeah, and I mean, those
Take
would have been
one
easy
story
deletes.
and chop it
Yeah,
together.
like just delete because this isn't local.
Well,
So
and Lisa, that's such a good point. What I say is, Heights House is a great example. We're all going to tell the same stories. We're all in the same market. We're going to tell the same stories at the art museum. I had a meeting this week. I am super jazzed about something you guys are doing, but I don't want to tell the same story that Walter or Midtown's telling or anyone else. If we are, then just say, hey, somebody's got that angle. Let's talk about a different angle. Don't be afraid that we're going to walk
No, I'm
away.
texting Carly right now, and we're going to give you the exclusive on the Uka Beauty campaign.
yes,
So.
I'm doing it by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I just
No, I'm teasing, but I was foaming at the mouth as she was talking about it because I love that story. But it doesn't mean we won't cover when any restaurant or anybody's doing something just because somebody else is. We just want a different angle, and there's a way to do it differently. For sure.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions for us?
What are the topics that you're not getting enough pitches about? In case we're like, we have clients that we like don't shop their stories because it doesn't feel like there's interest.
We get a lot of stuff. We don't get a lot of buzz topics, local buzz topics.
Meaning taking your topic. So I know you guys know this, but buzz is what are people talking about? What should they be talking about? It's
The
probably
dog park example. That's
Yes.
how we turn it into
Okay,
a buzz story.
So, my office, we love animals. Everybody loves animals. And everybody wants to do a story about the dog parks that are coming to town.
Or
That's
bars.
great. Or dog park bars. But my point is, everybody's done it. It's going to be there. My story is, how did this become, all of a sudden become an industry? Is it been an industry in every other high-rise city and we're getting it now just because we have so many tower apartments? Or what is it? To me, that's a buzz story. That's a news story about our economic development. We could do a list of where to take your dog.
And drink beer.
I think you can get that on Instagram. You don't need that from me. I want to do something that makes you think. Not too long, it's not 6 pages, but it makes you feel like you kind of understand the industry and what's going on. But that's a
Yeah.
good example.
Well, and actually, we did put the dog park bar coverage in the newsletter, so we got both sides. We got the kind of do angle handled in the and that could have been a do story in the newsletter,
Could
but
have
or in the print magazine, but by then it feels a little old. So people know it's there, and so yeah, I think buzz is one that's really hard that we really sweat out, like figuring out what is going on news-wise in this city.
I also
Because we're not a newspaper.
No.
We have a specific niche
No.
we're trying to fill.
And I also think, you said we get a lot of stuff things. The stuff for us is the stuff in your house, the stuff in your closet, the stuff you buy.
And interior design.
Interior design,
all
but
that
it's
stuff.
random. We end up having to search this stuff out on our own. We come across a jewelry person who's doing something really incredible, or a candle maker, or a beard oil guy. We're digging it out. It's not like it lands in our lap, or that people are pitching those kind of products.
Yeah, that one's picked up more, but you're right. It still is a lot of research. Honestly, all of them are mostly us right now. We're not getting
is-
a lot of.
No, food we get pitched a lot on.
We do, but not stories, just topics.
Right. That's
so
true.
it's this. You feel like it's the same press release everybody's getting, and then you're trying to figure out, like, well, is there even something for us to do with this? So,
So, a couple of things.
Read your question.
No, go ahead.
Conversely, what are subjects you'd like to stay away from?
Have you met Gina? Nothing.
You're good with politics, you're good with...
It gets a red frowny face in the opening of the magazine.
That's
Paying
even going to
attention.
change in this issue. We've
That's my
updated the
favorite
look
section.
of that. No
We
more
updated it.
emojis, but no. We've taken on some topics that have caused some heartache and heartburn. I think I have pretty thick skin, but I've taken a beating on a couple of stories I covered. But I think that's what city magazines do. And we're not trying, everybody's not going to love us every day, but you hope that builds some trust, that people go, okay,
Her favorite saying is that we're not a Pollyanna publication.
We're
There you
not.
go.
And yeah.
But we're not trying to, we're
No,
not
we're
the
trying to
opposite
piss
either.
people
We're not
off.
trying to
No.
piss people off. We just want to like tell whatever stories are there.
And as
We
far
don't
as
shy away.
and as far as advertising, the only advertising we won't take is just a personal preference. We're not going to take strip clubs. Girly, I mean, other than
I didn't even know that.
alcohol. No, we're not. No, not doing that. But other than that, I'm not degrading women. But other than that,
Cheers to that. I don't want you to.
no, I know you don't want to miss. But other than that, I'm pretty good. But other than that, you know, from
You guys all want to split an April Fool's ad with her?
Good idea, Lisa. But yeah, we don't really. I mean, there's some stories in the works. There's no doubt I'm the hard news junkie, and I'm the political junkie in the room, and I have to make. I lost that with Jane. Jane was always the one trying to make me care about it, and I know people. You look at you look at the number of people who show up for elections, and it will make you sad that we live in such a cool city, and 28% of the people who show up and vote who are registered to vote. I think I take it as my job to convince you that there's a reason, that whether it's development, whether it's bars and being able to be open, whether it's the high rise that's going up next to your, where you live, whatever it is, there's got to be something that you're passionate about enough to make you care. And I think that's our job. And there are a lot of stories out there like that we want to tell. I have to say, I don't usually admit problems, but oh well. So we were hoping to be able to hand you a sneak peek of this magazine. Some idiot on the floor of my printer who didn't put the box in it didn't get here. It'll be here at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, but so
We
this
will
is
mail everybody.
yes,
copies,
no,
so
absolutely, and hopefully you're on our comp list. If you're not, let me know. Our 25 best dishes will drop tomorrow. I'm super excited about it. It's different. It's just different. You feel a little bit of the shareables dishes in there. You feel a little bit of the comfort, the rollback to comfort dishes based on what we went through in 2020. It's a good issue. It's fun.
Can you give us a sneak peek? Any surprise entrance?
Yeah, because she's very in the lead. This is the biggest issue in 2
Well,
years.
This is the big. We are back to pre-COVID. Biggest issue Raleigh Magazine has published in a long time.
And I think it matches the biggest issue ever, right?
Yeah, it
116,
matches.
116 pages,
Yeah.
chock full of content for your reading
Yeah,
pleasure.
so it's over 50 stories.
Yeah.
Probably more than that. But
And it's over 80 pages of editorial, I think. There's a lot of spreads, in
Yeah.
that, but
so I brought the last 2 issues, hopefully knowing who you are. You've read all those issues, but there are a couple of exclusives and unique things to give you an idea of the kind of stuff. We've got the exclusive on the businesses that are on the lower level of Smoky Hollow. We shot the first. They are holding the press release until our magazine drops tomorrow. We have exclusive with Niall looking at the 3-story renovation of Solus, which is no longer going to be called that. And it's gorgeous. I mean, he outdid himself. So
we have a huge feature on houseplant hysteria that you're going to want to read and soak up.
And the 25 dishes, there are going to be some people on the list you're like, wow, really? Cool stuff. We vetted all this with some foodie friends not attached to any restaurant, and it's a good list.
And then even from a civic standpoint, we got the only magazine sit down with the new police chief and did a
Yes,
Q&A with
the
her.
only
She is-
magazine.
Yeah.
Big hit.
They shared it today. They loved it so much. They shared it on their Facebook today because we did PR emails today. So they already shared it, and so we got to sit down with her, and she is fabulous. So very honored.
And we're open. You know that. I mean, we're open to story ideas. We're open to giveaways. We're open to all kinds of cool stuff. If it doesn't even sound like a magazine thing, let's talk about it.
And please pitch me your Instapot story, your baby story, your RV story, and your vintage story.
If you know what a gadget garage is, we need one.
Okay, that's the story.
Gadget
Yeah.
garage.
See, that's what we just want. Yeah, I mean, Everybody hears everything. We just want to give them like something original and unique. And
And,
awesome.
and I love what she said. We tell even for our interns, we sit at the table. It's what are people talking about? I don't need it to be brain surgery. I need it to be what your buddies are talking about on the golf course or when they're drinking whiskey and what you're
Careful what you ask for. They're all subscribers, and it's like they'll
Some of my
text
buddies
me
talk
and
about
they're
your
like,
non-appetizers.
But you know, those are the stories sometimes. I mean, we want to hear about your clients, but
Yeah, of course.
obviously, but there's some other stuff out there that even groups that you serve on the board for that, you know, pitches stuff. And we are actively, we typically choose 3 or 4 nonprofits a year that we do a partnership and trade with, that we give them ads and we support them in some sort of sponsorship role. And I try to change those up. I've been loyal to the same group for 3 or 4 years, so it's time to kind of change that up a little bit. But if you have things you want to pitch, we are open for sure. I love those kinds of things.
I love that you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to say that when Lisa said, hey, I want you to talk to the group, where should we do it? Well, I have to tell you, that guy down there is one of my favorite people. This was our first Best Bars issue. Doug created a drink. We shot it right here. I'm not even sure. There was nothing on the walls. It wasn't even finished yet. It wasn't open, and we shot it for this issue. So I love Atlantic Lounge. If you don't have a key, you are not cool. Get a key. Get a key.
So I told Jenny we were doing this thing, and he was like, how many guests can you take on your key? I was like, I don't think it's like that tonight. I think this is like everyone gets to come.
Because we each have a
key.
key.
Yeah.
Why does she have a key and I have a key? I have no idea.
We both have, Mike and I both have a key. We thought
So we
we'd
can
always
each bring a guest.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to do a double date? You gotta-
Rule followers. Like,
We follow rules.
Yes, it's not going to be this guy.
Yes.
That'd be, we need your own key.
So thank you for doing this
Yes,
for
thank
us.
you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
With that in mind, Doug, you want to take a minute to talk about, I think it's a lot of people's first times here. You want to talk a little about Atlantic Lounge and the history of that?
Just generally speaking, when Jason decided to open the bar up, and I'll speak on his behalf, but when he was doing his last business partnership, he had a bar that went south, and the culture's changed there a lot in 15 years. Got a lot younger and a little bit rowdier, and so when he was there, he changed his bar to 25 and up to try and keep it for the downtown community, because a lot of people that come into town on the weekends and things like that, they're a little bit younger, they're a little bit adventure seeking, maybe, would be a polite way of saying it. But there's a pretty solid community of people that really want to invest in the businesses down here, both food and beverage, as well as the different retail outlets. And particularly in downtown, we do sponsor a lot of small independent businesses that you don't see quite as frequently throughout the rest of the city. So in order to kind of promote small independent business owners in North Carolina and in Raleigh specifically, that's always been a huge priority for Jason. And he wanted to build a space for them to enjoy. Because on a Friday and Saturday night, it's a different town downtown than it is for the rest of the week. And we kind of wanted to be able to present a product to people with the expectation that, like, come in with your guests, have a conversation, bring a record and listen to it, have like a good experience. But the priority is spending time with people you intend to go out with, as opposed to what I think a lot of nightclubs end up doing, where kind of importance is meeting strangers. It's not really what we wanted to offer for people. And also, just in general, like a lot of people get off work in the industry at 11, 12 o'clock at night. They don't want to necessarily go see the guests that they've been serving and things like that. So, especially later in the night, you'll see like the chef from Rockford comes in pretty frequently, like Oscar and Charlie Ibarra came in just recently as well to have like a business meeting. But basically, we wanted our bar to facilitate the downtown community of people who are here 7 days a week and not just Friday and Saturday, and give them a space to really enjoy and feel relaxed, have a good drink, and not feel overly complicated too much about it. So we try and run different items here with like the $10 to $12 drink range, which I think is pretty comfortable for most people, and even down to like we sell $3 packs so that people can come in and relax and not have to be overly complicated about it. But again, like you look at our shelves, you'll always see local products. We've got local whiskeys selected, local gins, local rums. we try and get as much locally as possible. For the longest time, before the format of the city farm changed, we actually got all of the herbs for our entire prep kitchen here from the Raleigh City Farm, like 2 blocks away. So couldn't imagine how to get much more local than a walking distance. So, and even now too, like all of our beer that we carry on tap since we opened has been a brewery within walking distance of the shop, because Jason really has taken a lot of time to invest in his friends and to help support their businesses, because it's important to support each other in town. And that's kind of what we do.
What's the process to get a key these days?
We're trying to be a little bit more accessible. After our first year, prior to quarantine, we kind of got the impression people thought that it was a lot harder to come in and sign up than it is. So for the time being now, we're doing every day from 5 to 7. We'll have the door kick-standed open so new members can come in, do some brief paperwork. And it gives me a time too to like sit down with everyone. I think that's something that we've really succeeded with, is when we get an opportunity to tell people what they're buying with the key, we're able to set an expectation that we can meet and exceed. And I think that's a really important part of why we're successful as a company here, is we don't try and change what we're selling. We're trying to let people know what we intend to give them. And if that's something they want to be a part of, we can usually exceed that expectation. But you know, if that's not what they're looking for, then there's still 150 bars in downtown. So I'm sure they'll find something.
Something for everyone.
Well, and I will interject, as a business owner, I probably have seen Doug more in the last 60 to 90 days than I have in a long time. But when I make a new client, I bring them here. They feel like they have got something they didn't know, and you think people know about it, they don't. And I've bought the key's $40. I buy it for a client. I've got a friend for life. And I really think that this is a great spot for doing business.
Not only that, but we share a vision. He
We
just
do.
said we're not trying to change who we are, we're trying to show you what we do. And
Stay in
that's
our lane.
exactly what we've been saying all night. So we just want to like create a very unique lane and stay in it, and then show people how to join us in that lane. So.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming.
It's nice to talk about it.
Let's send everybody home. I'd love to hear from everybody on ideas for things that y'all want for future programming. We've kind of workshopped some ideas internally. One of the things that I did for my team as a training during the shutdown season was we all did a refresher on AP style, which I think is one of those things you forget how many things there's actually already guidance around, but then also all these new words come into play, and I think that's always a great lunch and learn topic. But what we're trying to do that's different from other trade organizations is really be an accessible resource for members. So fun things and meet and greets like this, but also what are some of the tactical things that y'all are looking for that either are unaffordable to send staff to for training, or just don't exist in the marketplace?
Can I ask who your membership is designed not to be people like us? It's okay. I just wanted to make sure that I understood. You're not looking to expand your membership to public.
I mean, any and all are welcome, but it's we basically have kind of broadened the reach to communications professionals in general. Our annual awards program, we actually had to whittle down some of the categories because it was just too exhaustive.
Right.
And we cover everything from in-house publications, so a big company and their company annual newsletter, to shareholder reports, to now it's expanded with things like podcasts and videos. So our membership, I think the organization started in the 50s. It was the guy who was basically the head of PR for CP&L, Duke Energy. The Sir Walter Raleigh Awards for Excellence in Communication were, about the written, practice of PR, but it has expanded to be anyone who works in communication. So we've got, in-house people, we've got agency people, we've got people that work in communications offices in the public sector, public and private and donor funded. We've got a student membership. We've had a lot of great support from both Peace College, Meredith, I guess all of the above, Peace, Meredith, and NC State. They all have communications departments. So it's really, very robust. I think that's what makes it a little bit challenging to try and figure out programming that speaks to so many people.
Do you have access to the student
We do. I will say that that comes with all that you might expect working with colleges and college students. Like, the most success we've had with that is that almost every year we've had opportunities to kind of help them fill panels on professionals, like giving career-seeking students who are about to graduate, or like PRSA students and stuff. Which that's been the best like ongoing relationship we've had in terms of getting additional talent from them, or like internship opportunities. We'll pass along anything, but I just want to manage expectations there that it feels like every college relationship ever.
We have a lovely PR intern here today with her last day, and we're both very ecstatic. So we're currently looking for it.
Yeah,
I would
and-
highly recommend Elon.
Oh, so I forget to think about them.
So we've had,
We have a really good relationship with the HBCUs around town because they do it's through the state, they do an internship program, but a lot of them wind up in communication fields. So I just had a great intern from Elizabeth City University. So yeah, they're a great, like, underutilized resource. It's hard to find someone who is personable and likes to talk to people and doesn't
Do you
really-
have the contact for NC State's communications department?
So
Our current
not
intern.
really.
Okay, I have it.
Okay.
Our current
Just be,
intern is communications major, and that's the first one.
Okay. I found a fantastic social media intern through EPAC at NC State through the College of Management, because I like contacted an old marketing professor who got us the hookup. But we found Anna Grace through a mutual friend. Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, she would be
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, great.
And her major just happened to be public
And
relations.
Elon does have a portal.
Elon has a portal, and it's really professionally done. And we really, I mean, I've had, even before Melissa joined us, I've had best luck. Some of my best interns have been from Elon, who are willing to drive over and are really committed and well trained. The same, I mean, we've had some success with NC State.
Lauren.
Lauren's poster child. But
And
a
our
few
current
others.
one. And Annabeth. Annabeth
Right.
last semester was
Right.
definitely great.
But certainly I would highly recommend Elon. They have a incredible job placement program, and so they're constantly looking for interns.
The interesting thing about state is that Lauren was a design major, minor journalism. Annabeth last semester, or this summer, was a business major, journalism minor. And then now we have Emma, and she's a communications major. So I have a couple different contacts if you guys want them.
For sure.
And it was also, so far I have gotten none out of the direct English department pipeline,
Right.
which is what you would expect,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
different.
they weren't able, they actually run their internship for course credit once a year in the spring semester. So this would be the time to hit them up though if you want an English major.
Yeah, I'll send you an email.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Anna
It's
Grace
hard to
was
find
like-
interns that are good.
Yeah,
We're gonna
that's
have
true.
our 22 editorial calendar out Labor Day. My goal is to have that out to everyone, so we will send that. The rest of this year, and the last 2 issues are over there. If anybody needs anything, I'm sure you have all that, but I brought it anyway.
So I'll think on programming while you know here.
Yes,
Yeah.
and any ideas, because, right now it's kind of like a, small mind mash group of like the 5 or so 6 people on our board, and we're like, what's everyone interested in right now? What's the last thing you Googled?
I will tell you though, I mean, it's gonna sound awful, and if this were a room full of people, I would not say this out loud. I think how to pitch is, it's how to get to know and how to recognize the audience for publications. That might be insulting to some people who've been in the business for a long time, but it's amazing how we get pitches, the same pitch is sent to everybody. And I just think, if you think that's gonna work, you're wasting your time sending that email. It's just not.
But in the same vein, there's a couple of PR people that come to mind that do that, and I'll see their stories in 4 or 5 publications immediately within 24 hours, and that also just to us, I think, speaks to the difference in what we're trying to do versus what they're trying to do. We're not just trying to produce content. We want to tell you something you don't know. And I think we didn't even already say this, but we get a lot of pitches. Gina and I will just like, I've sent some curt emails, but we get a lot of pitches of like, I'm new I'm new to Raleigh and I don't understand why you won't tell me to like where I want to go get my hair done, or why won't you talk about newcomers? And these are, you know, not necessarily people that are new. It's the PR person saying like, we have newbies and we want you to tell them this. So, well, we see this as like the Raleigh magazine, the Insider's Guide to Raleigh. So if you're reading it, you would know where to go, first of all. And second of all, we're
So
not.
that's what Yelp's for.
We're not lending ourselves to newcomers. We're lending ourselves to people who are either from Raleigh or have been here long enough, or that they consider themselves from Raleigh or they want to be. And we are determined to tell them something they don't already know, which is like an impossible task, versus the easy, like, these are your 5 hairdressers to go to.
We just did a city council story, and you can be careful with that kind of thing because some people are interested in that, know all of it, and they'd be quick to go, oh, they think I'm in kindergarten. And so it's in case you probably already know this, but in case you don't, you know, it's sort of in that.
In case you're the 70% that didn't show up to vote.
I mean, it's
That's
and
you.
so for us, it really is. We want to make you an insider. This is where, for me, and you guys have all heard me tell this story, but I had to move every 18 months for NBC. They dropped me in a city, and within 48 hours, I had to be able to know how to run a meeting and be a local. And a city magazine helped me get there, along with the newspaper and other things. But a city magazine is supposed to make you be smart. Cocktail conversation. You're like, hey, did you hear this is open? And did you know? And so you feel like you're cool and you're an insider. And to me, that's what we're supposed to do. So.
I definitely think there's space to obviously lend ourselves to the newcomers. Like, we're thinking about doing things with that. But in terms of our magazine page, cover to cover, we want it to be for people that know Raleigh and can't tell them something they don't already know.
Out of morbid curiosity, what are the stories that you write that get you the most like reader comment, like unsolicited reader feedback?
I know
Other stories
exactly
that
what
turn
she's going to
comments
say.
I actually don't know my own answer, so please tell me.
Unsolicited reader feedback.
I know that's what struck me, unsolicited reader feedback.
Like when they just feel compelled to tell you how they think about something. I'm curious.
What is it that you think I was going to say?
No, the podcast story.
Um,
We ran a list of podcasts every other month, and we were shocked by how many people gave us their feedback or loved it or shared it that were interested in just the vetted list, our curated list of.
there's a new one in September.
No, I'm shocked by the things that sometimes get feedback, and when I say why I don't answer every email, you know, we got an email the other day about being racist. The magazine was racist because the brown people, what was the name of the story?
Brown People We Know, which is the name
It
of
was-
the podcast.
Right. It was
Yeah.
the name of the podcast, but the person thought that, that we were taking a stance on, and
Like, she thought we called it that.
we got screamed at by the Zebulon
Yeah.
mayor for not including them in our suburb story. So it's funny the reaction. I think food and beverage, there's no doubt. We get the best positive response. And we found that niche. People hold their stories. I'm excited to say that the owner of this place is going to disclose something with us in our next issue that no one's seen yet. His couple of new places that are opening, we're getting the real deal story. So people start to save and share with us. And so food and beverage is sort of where we've carved out, I think, a niche. We get more response on that.
We don't get a lot of negative feedback. Those are two great
No.
examples, though. It's like when it is negative, it's really like aggressive, and they're really mad.
But that was the Zebulon.
But it's
yeah.
it's not a mistake. It's more
It's
like
more-
just a response.
Right,
you know?
and I respond to all of that, for sure. But we really don't get as much hate mail.
Well,
as
we
you
have this December feature they've been doing forever, and I have to do it for the first time that dropped acorns. And so I was talking to Liz about it because I was like, I think my understanding is I'm supposed to like rib on people.
She is.
And so I was
Have
like,
you guys
I don't
read
see how
this?
that's like making friends for the magazine.
right,
And
we're
she-
not-
No, I know. I'm just trying to understand, right? And she was like, I'm not trying to make friends.
So if you haven't read it, in December, we started this 3 years ago. It's called Dropped Acorns. And it's basically the people who've made themselves look stupid over the last year. And we call them out on it.
We'll get negative feedback from that.
But we never have. We
Really?
never have. I had a lady stop by the office and bring me acorn-shaped pearl earrings because it's her favorite story. She said, "I love it when you get snarky
Well,
and when
Snarky
you."
is my middle name, so
Right.
I'm excited.
So, you know.
Buy that lady the cocktails.
But the point was,
all of us.
it's, you know, it's, you can't be Pollyanna all the